Today, I'm excited to be interviewing Dr. Linda Berry. And Linda has a remarkable story to tell. The topic of our talk is trauma healing to achieve your dream goal. And I'm just going to read Linda's bio. Dr. Linda empowers her patients, students, readers, and listeners to transform stress into fuel to power their life and dreams. She knows how because at 24 years old, she was paralyzed from an automobile accident. She rose up from her wheelchair to help others heal as a chiropractor, nutritionist, and trauma healing specialist. Wow, that's just massive, Linda. Yeah, what a journey you've been on, and so brave, so courageous. So, why don't we begin by telling us and the viewers and listeners, well, first of all, what happened? How did you experience this calling to do something like that, to go on that journey when you were in that state, of being paralyzed? And how was it pulling yourself up from there to where you are now?
Well, it took everything. It took all of my efforts. It took educating myself more. It took a community of friends. I was a modern dancer in a
Oh.
modern dance company in upstate New York. The name was the American Dance Asylum.
Mm.
And so my whole dance community, our students, fellow collaborators, musicians, and dancers, were part of my recovery team, caring about me, caring for me, coming to visit me in the hospital. I
Mm.
was hospitalized for 3.5 months, but also I was studying karate, and students from the dojo used to come also and visit me. They'd bring me food, and so I also felt that I was in a state of grace. I was
Wow.
very incredibly active. I sometimes had to hitchhike because my car would break down, and I was teaching dance, and I was choreographing dance, and I was dancing. And
Hold on a minute, because yeah, just well, you say you were teaching dance and everything. So was this like before the accident? You mean?
yeah,
I
that
see.
was before the
Yeah.
accident. And so my point was that I was a woman totally in motion. And then when I was in the hospital, I had to lay flat on the surface. They had me laying on something called a striker frame, where I would be on my stomach for a few hours, and then they would turn the bed over, and I would be on my back for a few hours, so that I wouldn't get bed sores.
Mm.
And I was going nuts so much that one of my fellow dancers actually got permission from the staff to take my bed out into the hallway just so I could move, have the sense of movement. So
Wow.
yes, it was extremely challenging. And as I say, I felt like I was in a state of grace. And of course, the medical team was caring for me, and then my family and my community of friends, fellow performers, and also the fellow karate students.
Wow, you had so much love and support. I'm sure that this is what contributed to this feeling of being in a state of grace.
Absolutely.
Mm. Mm.
And also, I just had no anticipation that I wasn't going to get better. Um, that was just my assumption at that point, that I was going to get back to being able to dance again.
That's great. I mean, what had they told you anyway? Did they say that you if you did certain things that you would come through and you would walk again? The doctors.
No, they actually never said anything like that. They didn't
Mm.
know whatsoever.
gosh.
I remember there was a urologist person that I saw because I had to have a catheter for the time that I was in the bed for a while.
Mm.
And the urologist said, well, I don't know if you'll ever walk again. But none of the other doctors ever said anything to me about whether I would or whether I wouldn't.
Uh-huh. Well, I guess they were just being careful. Didn't want to
Right.
sway you too much one way or the other. Yeah. So it was
Yeah.
really your it was a deep compulsion within you to get
Right.
better, to get better, to
Mhm.
come through, to survive, to come out the other side and live a full and active life again.
Correct. Yeah, I was just 24 years old. So I had been living my dream life and I was definitely motivated to get back to that.
Mm. So what happens then? Um, did you go back to dancing for a while? How did you make that transition between dancing and chiropractic?
Well, with a spinal cord injury, there's different phases of healing. So the first phase, you get better if it's bruised, and that's a 3-month process.
Mm.
But they wait actually for a whole year to a year and a half to see what your total full recovery is going to be. And I didn't fully recover. I still have what's called a dropped foot, and I have a limp because I can't lift my right foot up when I walk. So I have to raise my hip higher in order to clear my foot. For anybody who might know, it's called a steppage gait from a spinal cord injury instead of a spastic type of gait when somebody has a problem in their brain like cerebral palsy.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so how did I make that transition? Well, I waited, I stayed with the company. So when I got out of the hospital, I went back to living with the company. We were all living together at that point,
Mm.
and performed with the company, but not as a dancer. I was doing some improvisational vocalization during performances.
Mm.
And I also taught some yoga and some improvised vocalization classes as
Mm.
part of the team.
Mhm.
But then it was obvious that I wasn't going to get back to the point where I could be a professional dancer anymore. And at that point, the dance company, the other members, there are 3 other members, were all thinking about going their different ways. So our company actually dissolved and everybody went off in a different direction. I had a long interest in nutrition, and I had been to a chiropractor when I was a dancer to help me with discomfort and pain in my neck and in my low back, and that was very helpful. So I decided that I would become a chiropractor. And actually, I had a prophetic dream. I
Oh.
dreamt that I was in this new location, and there was a hillside, like a quad, like you might see in a college, and then the hillside going off. And there was a 10-story peach in the quad. And the chiropractic school that I went to and was considering most strongly was in Georgia, which is called the Peach State. So
Oh.
I took that as some prophecy that's validated my thoughts about where I wanted to go next.
Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful. And so was it all plain sailing after that, Linda?
Oh no, every day, Nicola, I'm challenged with my
Really,
drop foot. And
really.
as we get older, because of that abnormal way of walking, it creates strains in the musculoskeletal system in my joints and bones and muscles. So every day I do so many things to help heal myself and, keep my head above water, so to speak.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so it's a constant part of my journey.
Wow, wow.
And one of the major was trauma healing. So I took
Oh, we've
one
we're freezing
day
up a little.
training and deciding to for it. It was very valuable work, but I could really benefit from this work. So,
Mm,
so I decided to do the 3-year training program.
mm,
It's a Peter Levine's program, and it's called Somatic Experiencing or Trauma Healing. So I
mm.
did that training program, and that's what I want to share with your listeners and viewers today,
That's
were some
wonderful.
techniques that they could use from that tradition, and also from a meditation tradition that I've been involved with for um, almost 40 years now. Um, that's taught by Montauk Chia, and he has the International Healing Tao. So I
Mm,
incorporate these with 5-element Chinese philosophy, looking at virtue energy and looking at where negativity is stored in the body and how we can release that, as well as being able to discharge trauma and integrate a new level of healing into our mind, into our body, into our emotions.
wow, this is fascinating. So we're going to go dive right into this. And first of all, let's just talk about like a few kinds of types of trauma, right? So viewers can really relate their
Sure.
situation to
Yeah,
these wonderful practices that you're about to share. So
exactly. Right. So you may not have crashed through a windshield, crushed your spine, and been paralyzed. Not many people have,
right,
but many of us have had trauma. There are statistics that say that 1 out of 4 women has had their boundaries violated, been sexually molested or raped in some way.
right,
That's an enormous amount of people, and some
it is
think that percentage is too low. So that's extremely traumatic. And
exactly.
perhaps you were traumatized by a medical procedure. Maybe getting your tonsils out was incredibly traumatic for you, or maybe you had to have surgery as a youngster and that was incredibly scary for you, or maybe a dog bit you, or your family was involved in an automobile accident and that
Mm,
traumatized you. So trauma can happen on lots of different levels. It can be physical, it can be mental, it can be emotional. It
right.
can be extremes of nature, like the tsunami that we had, or the terrible fires that we have. It
Right.
could be from a medical procedure, and it could be sexual trauma.
Mm,
Yeah,
right, exactly. So there's a lot of women who have gone through some kind of trauma, and and there's also the trauma from family, the family you grew up in when it was extremely dysfunctional. You
exactly.
didn't get the love
Yeah.
that you needed. So there's so many
Hmm.
examples, and and so trauma can get in the way, as it were, or be something you have to tackle to be able to achieve your dream goals in life, right? So
Right.
why don't you address that for the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, certainly. So we all know that our mood, for one thing, affects our posture. Like if we've been battered by the world, we may be like this.
Sure.
We could be all slumped over, which is bad for our organs, and that we won't have good energy, we won't have good digestion, we won't look attractive for somebody to want to do business with us, right? If you're a professional woman, or if it's just in your personal life, it's hard to want to get close to somebody who's all scrunched up in pain all the time.
Yeah, sure.
So there's that level of the obstruction, but there's also our brain, and our brain is divided into, it's much more complicated than this, but put simply, there's 3 different parts of our brain. There's the brain stem down here, and that's called the reptile, and that's the automatic behavior. We don't have to think about it. It's
We're getting a little bit of
simply
interference. Mhm.
of the brain. So it's the fight, flight, or freeze part of our nerve. And then there's the middle part of our brain here, and that's constantly afraid, or if we're constantly criticizing ourselves, because that's the voices that family or teachers or our peers, the clergy, all kinds of institutions can give us very negative messages about ourselves and inhibit us from being able to have our full expression and lead our dream life to fulfill our passions and goals. And then also, from a perspective of the brain, the third part of our brain is the gray matter, or the cortex, and particularly here, the prefrontal cortex. So this is called the frontal bone, and behind there is the prefrontal cortex, or the gray thinking part of your brain. And this part of your brain, the more we develop it, the more it can help to calm, we call it the monkey brain, the emotions, and the more it can help to calm the reptile brain. Our nervous system is wired for survival. So I've learned that it takes 5 times as many positive experiences in order to negate one negative experience. So at 68, my focus is focusing on as many positives as I can, having as much positive experiences that I can, that help me to negate, transform, discharge, overcome anything that's happened in my life that's been negative.
I love that. I love that, Linda. I just thinking of myself, I love feeling great, right? I love feeling what I call joyful, and feeling free and expansive. And I love to go out to the beach and go hiking, be in nature. And so it's like an instinctive way to get positive and fill myself up with good energy, right? When maybe I might have woken up feeling a little glum or something, or a little fearful, right? So I feel like I do that quite naturally, though I can get caught up in fears. But it's so fascinating to hear you explain this from a more scientific point of view, in a way, describing how the brain works, and that you have to do five positive things to at least to transform fear, or yeah, 5, the big 5. So
neutralize.
That's great
transform.
information. That's great information, and it really links up a lot with positive psychology and what we're learning about the brain and neuroplasticity and all of that. So it's very helpful.
That's right. Yeah.
For women, you really can achieve your dream goals, but you have to do your part, and it is about managing your mind and using these practices and learning what works for you, really, isn't it?
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. It has to do with your focus.
Yes.
So developing a focus. What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on these 5 bad things, letting them rerun over and over in your brain? Or are you working to generate more positive experiences in your life, focusing on what's good, what's beautiful, what works, in order to transform? So that's actually called rewiring your brain.
I love
and it actually makes a physical change in your brain. I just was looking at an article by a PhD student in brain science, and he showed pictures of his brain, MRIs of his brain, and he used to be a heroin addict. And when he was a heroin addict, there was less gray matter. There was less of this, a portion of the brain that can help to calm the negative emotions and the brainstem. And then after he had been doing a mindfulness practice, just for a very short period of time, he started getting more of this gray matter in his brain, and also the pathways that connect from the body to the brain so that we can begin to get mastery over the negative behaviors, the self-sabotage behaviors that interfere with us being able to realize our dreams.
Wow. That's just fascinating. And it's proof. I mean, you have the proof right there,
Absolutely.
physical proof.
Yeah.
So it's the way to go, isn't it? So, would you like to? I know what we'll do first. I do want you to share a practice or whatever. We have this part of our the podcast where we have reflection time, right? So I invite you to share something that listeners can use for to reflect upon, to help them with achieving their goal and overcoming trauma and how it's affecting them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would be your first step that you intuitively feel from your higher wise woman or wise man to help resolve trauma that's getting in the way of you manifesting the life of your dreams? So that's my first question. What's your next step that you could do?
Yes.
And then the second thing to reflect on would be, do I need help in doing this? I've
Yeah.
taken myself this far, but do I need to engage the help of an expert like Nicola or like myself in order to overcome these obstacles that are preventing us from being able to live the life of our dreams?
Great. Those are two really good questions, Linda. I like how you say you give us the question, do I need some help? Do I need some support with this from a professional? Because sometimes going it alone, you don't get as far as you could with some help. So that's a wonderful
Absolutely.
question. That's great. So why don't you share with us now the practice or whatever? I know you have a free gift actually too, that links up with the practice.
Yes, I
Tell us
do.
all about that.
So shall I talk about that now?
Um, if it's like two
Yeah.
things that I'm saying, whatever order you want to put them in, or if they end up being the same thing, I wasn't quite sure what you wanted to say about a practice. So if you want to share something first and then tell us about the free gift, then that's fine.
Yeah, solutions. Yeah.
Solutions, practices, and
Yeah.
solutions. Yeah,
So very simply, correct. The most simple solution is to just focus on your breathing. That's the simplest form of
that is
mindfulness and meditation. So if you just notice what's happening with your breathing, when you're in a stress situation, generally your breathing is, it's a short length of a breath and it's shallow and it's up here in your chest.
right.
So you could use your hands, you can put your hands down on your belly perhaps, and feel your hands be pressed out as you inhale and fill your belly. And then when you exhale, exhale just a little bit longer than it takes to inhale. So say maybe count to 3 when you inhale. And then when you exhale, count to 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever feels good.
That's a great one.
And
Yeah,
of course, your mind is going to wander, but just gently keep bringing your mind back to focusing on your breath. That's a very simple thing to do. And also in science, we know that when you take a longer exhale, that you automatically, without having to think about it, you automatically start the calming and relaxing part of your nervous system, the parasympathetic part of your nervous system.
mhm.
And this is what the front of your brain can help to generate. But you can do that by just physically paying more attention to long exhale. So I encourage you to do this as a practice. Have a bit of a healing interval throughout the day, just throughout the day, whenever you
Oh,
can.
we're getting some sound problems, but yeah, we were getting
Take
a
a
few
big
sound
breath and a long
problems.
exhale. It
Yeah.
helps to center you and calm you and helps you to get rid of the chatter that might be in your mind. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
uh, okay. Yeah, so that could help take you away from the mind chat that gets in the way of you realizing your dreams.
Right.
And then I do have a free gift for you. If you go to smileintodistress.com, DISTRESS, two S's there for distress, smileintodistress.com. You can simply enter your name and your email address, and we'll email you an audio file. It's an MP3 audio file that you can put on any device that you listen to. 15-minute guided meditation. It comes from the DAP, and I modified that for helping to resolve distress. So in that 15-minute guided meditation, you help to encapsulate and remove the stress from your mind, your heart, your body, your thoughts, and then enclose it so that it's no longer troubling you. And then you send it away. And I give you some suggestions in the meditation so that you can follow my guided meditations. When I've taught it to patients, they said that they sent it down into the ocean and then a shark came and gobbled up the bad stuff and took it away. And another patient told me that they buried it in a trunk and buried it deep in the earth. And another client told me that they took all their distress and upset and trauma and sent it to earth to get burned up. So, if you as compost, as nourishment, and that's the fueling your life and your dreams, is transforming that energy. You take it out of your body and then you breathe in the good energy to fill all the places in your mind, your emotions, or your body, your spirit, where that negativity might have been.
Awesome. Awesome. And so all you need is the discipline and the willingness to do this, the commitment, right? And then you can achieve your dream goals.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't say so much. Yeah.
yes, go
I'm,
on.
I'm not so fond of the word discipline. I would prefer to just a little more gentle, is just to say focus. You can simply change your focus. You can change your focus from here to here. And
Yes.
when you change it to here, it has health benefits for you. And it also helps to power your life and dreams.
Right, exactly. I mean, the thing is, the brain just doesn't function so well when you deprive it of oxygen, and your intuition doesn't work so well, and all the rest. So you really are, by doing practices like this and finding what works for you, to get back into what would you say, a healthy functional state, and more, to actually,
A calm state.
yeah,
Yeah.
calm, and having all your
Right.
capacities at your fingertips, so you can do whatever you want to do and imagine whatever you want to achieve, and actually go for it and do it. So it that's really the way to go, isn't it? That's wonderful. And so,
Well, it's certainly one way to go. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
well, when I say that, I mean your practice might be one way to go, but it is the way to go in terms of handling. You have to handle it one way or another. You have to handle the effects of trauma, where it's actually getting in the way, where you're going into fear, where you're going into anxiety or overwhelm or doubt, lack of confidence, low self-esteem, or whatever it is that you end up.
Yes.
And you have to that is the way to go. You have to handle it, and there are many different ways, and Dr. Linda has one way for you to try, right? So at the end of each of my podcasts, my episodes, we do a little section called Inspire Yourself. So that is a short inspirational phrase or an affirmation that you can easily remember and use throughout the week, or and longer if you really like it. So what would you like to offer us today, Linda?
Let's see. I am resilient and have the ability in every moment to create a beautiful life.
Oh, I love that. That's powerful. I love it. That's great. So, what a wonderful gift. And it's been such a pleasure to interview you here today, Linda. And you
Thank you.
offered just a really powerful and unique perspective on overcoming trauma so that you can achieve your dream goal. And I feel grateful and excited for that, for everyone receiving that and receiving that help on their journey. So thank you. It's been a great pleasure.